Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I know it's been a while, and trust me, I have been just counting down and praying that this day would come sooner than it has. But to actually get to sit here with you at this time space reality, I am beyond excited. So it's probably going to be a long episode. I have a lot to share and catch you guys up on. And I mean, if you're meant to listen to it, like get ready, sit down, like, because there's a lot of story coming your way. Okay. So I'm going to start at what was happening in my life going into the last AFG gateway. About a week before my partner started to come in, Richard and I had a pretty deep conversation about him not feeling like I'm present enough in this time with him, in this space with him. It looked like it had been boiling up for a couple weeks. So it had looked like he doesn't feel like I was making dinner enough or often enough, or just like being present. Like we would eat and then I would come up here and go back into my work, because in my reality, I was trying to birth something, and I was trying to bring you guys the Pearl Mystery School, and I had a goal of getting some parts of it complete before going into the gateway. But when he said to me, I need you here, I need you to be present here, I was like, okay. Because here's the thing. You don't get signs if they're not meant for you. So I knew, okay, he's telling me this is my number one partner in this life, and he's telling me I'm not present enough. I'm not in my reality enough. And then he brought up you're giving all of your energy to what you love to do, which I'm supporting that, but what energy are you getting back in return? Maybe it's unbalanced. Maybe you're giving too much there and not enough here, and it's not in flow. And he didn't use those words. Those are my interpretation of it. And I was like, wow, okay, is that what's happening? Maybe I am over burning myself out in one aspect of my life and not realizing how can I help others if my partner is saying that I'm not supporting him, And we talked about starting a business together, and I think I've told you guys, he's super into making pizza and baking, and I mean, really, really any project that he gets his hands on, he's gonna make it perfection. So the latest one has been baking, and he said, why don't we go into business together? That could be something that you could do from home. You could still do the things that you want to do, but you could also have this business on the side. And I was like, okay. With every sign, there's always hesitation in the mind. There's always is that really a sign for me, or is this just his stuff? There's that kind of doubting, I guess, that would come in. And I realized, though, wait, he's offering me kind of a lifeline. He's saying look, you don't have to go out and stop doing what you're doing. You can do what you do and then also create, and we can do it together. And for me, my love language is quality time. I love quality time with him. That to me is my number one most important thing that I need. So it was an invitation that felt, good, but also what is that going to actually look like? Within a week after that, the other AFG, Faith and Aisha, came into our space, and the energy was moving. Basically, that conversation was in the back of my mind going into the gateway, but it was had to be put on hold because we were opening up the space for the pearls. So when they arrived, it was like, we got to play. We got to like each work on our own individual stuff before the gateway opened. And one of the things that I obviously have always talked about and struggled with is letting people into my space. And look, I knew this gateway was my leap of faith. Like this was my next big leap. And we have this thing called the Pearl Portal where each pearl answers questions before going into a gateway, which are kind of like poking and prodding you to realize why you're being called here. And one of the questions was, when is your last leap of faith? Or tell us about one of your leap of faith. And I said, actually, you guys are in it. Like, this is it for me. Like, this is a huge one for me. I've had, friends and even groups come here, but not to this scale. And not to this, how would I say it? Openness, like me laying my heart on my sleeve completely. That's what this was going to be for me. And so I knew it was a huge undertaking on my own ego. And yeah, I let everyone know up front, like, you're in it. This is mine. So as the girls came, they asked me right away, can we go into your space, which is this space that I'm in right now? It's my office, it's my temple, it's my everything. If you look at my house versus this room, they're kind of different. Like, this room is me and the house is, I don't know, it's like I've tiptoed into the house, but I haven't fully expanded into the house with who I am. So they asked if they could have access to everything in here. And I was like, sure. And then they went to work creating the temple space downstairs. And they just intuitively knew exactly, like they were grabbing stuff up here, bringing it down there. Like, you'll see my plants are missing. I let everything that they took from my cocoon, they brought basically downstairs into the temple. And I'm like standing there just like, oh, I like, the biggest way or the best way I can describe it is I felt like this, this hole in my heart chakra opened up, and it was like all of this energy that I had been like nurturing and babying and protecting and like keeping in this little tiny cocoon was like, poosh. And it felt like that. Like, I felt like they were like prying me out of that cocoon, like object by object. And I stood there like, this is how I was like, and then I would be like, no, we can't move that there. Or and then I realized, like, whoa, okay, you clearly are being activated right now. You've invited these people here, my friends, the people that I love, my sisters, and you asked them to do this, and they're doing it. And now is the time to just breathe. Like, literally just breathe. And I'm like, okay. So I stopped talking, I stepped aside, and I just let them create. And I felt like, okay, this is going to be okay. If I hate it, I can always like put myself back into that cocoon, can't I? Like, I may need to. Like, this feels so like exposed. Imagine in your altar, like my room here is an altar. Every single thing, it has its place. Like, it may look chaotic to other people, but to me, everything has a place. And it's a place that I've attuned to. Like, I know that is there, like I know this is there. I know when I look for something, I know where it is. And I didn't realize how much that mattered to me. But what I now know is that they are literally the things, and the energy have created this perfect womb for me to expand into. So when even one piece is moved out of here, it's like, but as I was sitting there breathing, just trying to breathe, I had to walk away. I had to get it. I couldn't watch it in action. I was like, I'm giving you permission, but I cannot witness this destruction of my cocoon. I can't do it. So I walked away and I just started doing other things. And at the end of it, they called me in to come see what they had created. And it was the weirdest experience. It was like all of my favoritist things in a different time space reality. Like, you know how if you're at a store or you're at someone's house and you see something that you're like, oh, I have that too. That's how I felt. I was like, I'm stepping into something that is not me, not mine, but I have that thing and I have that thing. And I remember that, like, it was like that. But I've never seen them in this space before, and I've never experienced it in this way before. And what happened is that what I was feeling, I didn't realize this when it was happening, but when I stepped into that room when it was complete, I realized that all of the energy that has created me over the last 4 years had been holding steady for me, had been like creating a frequency that helped me to feel safe, to keep expanding. And what happened is they like literally went into that cocoon and it was a whoosh and let light in. They let energy move. And it was like, holy shit. Everything that I thought as secure and security was like blown open. The doors were like whoosh. And now in comes this new adventure and this new experience that I couldn't create on my own. I would have never done that. I would have, even if I had to create a temple, I would have gotten new things to put in that temple because I would have thought like, no, this is my space. But I don't know if I told you guys this. The plan was to build a yurt on our land, and it was supposed to be separate. And we started working with contractors. We leveled the land. We built keystone walls. Like, we created the foundation. And then we were right before, on New Year's Eve night, we went to our neighbor's house for that night, and I was showing them a picture of the yurt, and they said, "Oh, did you get permitting?" And I said, "No, but it's not permanent. It's not a permanent structure." And they said, "Stop! Don't buy it. Like, stop. You need permitting here." They had done a lot of renovations on their house and backyard or land, and they said that drones fly over these lands, and if something changes, the city and the code keepers come out and start knocking on your door, and they're like, and that was on New Year's Eve. And that we were planning to order the yurt on the 1st of January because we wanted to do it in the new year for tax purposes. So literally the message came to us the night before we were going to order this. And then we started going down those threads of figuring out, like, can we get permitting on a yurt? And no, it turns out no. And then there's, I started talking to friends that have yurts, and they're like, don't. This is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. And I'm like, wait, what? And then one of my really good friends that's up in Joshua Tree, she has land that she's created a temple space on, and her space was actually built by HGTV. I think the series was called Tiny Homes, and they did it without permitting. And guess what? She's being driven off that land because she didn't get permitting. So all of a sudden, all these signs are coming at me like, stop, stop. And I'm devastated. I am devastated because I'm thinking that, okay, the first gateway on this land, like everything, I want it to be as perfect as it can be. And to me, that looked like a space outside of our house. So when that all came in, I was like, but I think it was Faith who had this vision all along, said, we already have a space. It's in your house, your living room. And I'm like, oh, okay. this house has a TV room and a huge living room that we never used. We had a sofa in there, and there's a fireplace, and that's pretty much it. Like, we never went in there really. And so when they were creating the temple, they removed the sofa, they removed everything that was there and created life. So when I say that a new life was born, new energy was born, I realize now why the yurt wasn't meant to happen. That womb needed to be in our womb. It needed to not be separate from the house, but actually in the house. And there's no way that I could have known that back then. I just was like, following the threads and letting the energy show me what was the next step. And because the land part like went so smoothly, I thought like, oh yeah, this is happening. And now I know what the land is for and why we needed to create the structure and leveling out. But back then I thought it was for the yurt. So the creating of the temple space felt like, number one, I told you I could not have done this. I wouldn't have done this without their help and their support and their vision and their love. And then as I'm looking around and seeing like all things that I have collected and I have gotten winks from and, signs from, I'm like, okay, you want to live here now. And okay, I can get on board with this. Okay. So I am like, blown open before anyone arrives in the gateway. I'm already like, here I am, my heart open. It's here. And then we started working through our own stuff individually. Things that night started popping up for Faith. And then the next night started popping up for Aisha. And then it's like, okay. And I realized like we gathered way beforehand so that we could do our work, the majority of our work together in a tighter, what would I call it? Like a tighter not connection. Let me just feel what the word is. Hold on. It feels like a matrix, like it's just a matricy. So I'm going to say a tighter matricy so that we could support those coming to the gateway. And as we each witnessed and held each other through those expanded moments, it was like, oh God, okay. Because the thing is like the tighter you're held in this matrix of cocoon, it allows you to permeate your actual walls, like to let it down a little bit, like in my case, letting down the need to have everything just so and in the perfect place for my ascension, basically. And so to have those days going into the gateway that really helped us go through our own spirals and then land back center so that we could hold space for everyone that was arriving was like the most integral part for me. And then, okay. The next thing was the opening of the gateway, and everyone arrived, and it was like everything great. Everything was amazing, and like a lot of the souls that arrived, or pearls as we call them, I've known for years, and finally meeting them in person was like welcoming back a part of myself into this reality, and it's like you meet people online and you think like, is this ever, are we just online friends or is it, but to actually receive in time space where you can meet at a junction point or a node point, it's like the meeting back of myself to me reflected in the eyes of someone that is like just glorious in their own right. So, there's like no words for that. So then I'm not going to talk too deeply on what happened in the gateway other than the points that I want to touch on. If you guys are feeling the call towards community, please go check out the Aurora Faith Gateway YouTube channel, or the podcast is called I See You, EYESEEYOU. And, start feeling into that vibration. It is very specific. You're going to know it if it's yours. And understand that we're being asked to create this matrix for a reason. And I know that now. And I have, been given the knowings when it's been time and not before. So, if you feel that call to go deeper into that community, yes, there's a space for you. So what it looked like is the gateway was like this welcoming back of all of these energies, and so many beautiful synchronicities between them who most of have never met. And they were like, oh my God, I've seen you on TikTok and I follow you on TikTok because you do this specific thing that I do. And it's like, yeah, of course. In this world full of billions of people, these threads are connected. They were connected long before we got in this time space reality together. And it, like, seeing that reflected in reality was like, how do you explain that magic? And then we went into 2 days of deep ceremonial work. And this was different. This gateway was like very much a healing portal, and then opened up to something deep within each of us. But the first gateway we didn't know what it was. It didn't feel, and I know each one is so different. So I know I can't compare them. But this one was like a deep womb healing and digging to the root of people's, like if I had to sum it up in one word, the heart portal and the heart resonance. And each person got to feel their heart in a new way in their own healing. And then we got to hold space for each other as that was unfolding, and it was magic. And then coming out of ceremonial work, we had 1 day before the equinox, and that day a lot had to move because we had almost been like, I feel like the ceremonial work was like a holding pattern. Like, okay, we created the container. We're going deep. Each person is going to go on their own journeys, but we're going to hold a frequency for everyone to join back at the end of that. And so our first day out of ceremony felt like, okay, now we are in the light of day. We see each other and the wounds are going to start popping. Let's get there. Let's go there. And the first one was me. I have one of the pearls and I needed to do some deep work and needed to hear each other and hold space for each other. And as we're sitting in the temple talking and everyone else is outside at the pool, like enjoying the sunshine, all of a sudden this got really dark outside, and then it starts pouring, and then it starts hailing, and then everyone's yelling and running around outside, and all the while I stayed in the temple. And after the meeting was done, everyone was showing me the pictures from this amazing experience. As we were working through the work, there were these spirals. The clouds formed spirals above the house and started creating energy above the house as this was open. Literally, they look like spiraling portals above the house. And I'm like, okay. So now it was so weird too, because the moment that the gateway pearls were alone together, that's when the portal opened. And then we just started, okay, like, let's go there. We are in it. And we decided to do that day. I believe we decided to do the gift exchange, and we just like held space and gave love to each other because one of the pearls had to leave early. That's what it was. And so we're like, holding space, going through I say the motions, but what I mean is the reason we do a gift giving is because many of us in this lifetime have a very deep wound of receiving, and we can't receive ourselves if we can't even receive from outside of ourselves. So this part of this offering of the gateway is very sacred. It's we ask each pearl to create something, bring something from their land, whatever is in their heart to offer it to the group. And so this part of the gateway lasts like hours. Like, I mean, imagine Christmas, but on steroids, because each gift is so deeply intentional and filled with consciousness. And we want to dive deep into the story and the ritual and we want to go there with you so that when we receive this thing, we know it's for us, and it goes right to my altar. All of them are on my altar right now. So we were working through that, and then when that was wrapping up, there was like energy. Like, I would say it felt palpable, palpable, and it was just like, who's it going to move through? Who's it going to move through? And sure enough, it ends up moving through someone. And then everyone started feeling a certain way and feeling like what I know now is that going into an actual portal, you have to release the low-hanging fruit. And it's like whatever's dangling on your tree that is ready and ripe to let go of or shed, it's going to come up. It's coming up because it can't make it through that portal. So in this evening, like, things started coming up, and it was like, okay, we prepared for this. We know this happened at the last gateway. We try to bring everybody into the temple together so that we can work it through together. But if we all know when conflict comes up, if we don't know how to be in our own bodies, of course we leave a situation. And then it was like helping people understand that when one heals, we all heal. So to go through the process together is the point. Like, let's go there. Like, when are you going to be in a container that can go there with you and hold you? And it's not like we ask everybody to talk. It's like totally you voluntarily, and if you feel the call to, but it's like, let's breathe through this. Let's move the energy. And in that movement, man, so many things come up. And in this case, they came up for me. And as I worked through my energy during the night while we were sleeping, it was like, okay, I can see what you need to shed. I can see, instead of it being like, oh, well, that one had that issue and this one had, no. What am I here to learn? What is my role in this? Because I am the one gathering these people. Like, let's go there. So by the time I woke up the next morning, I knew I needed to ask everyone to hold space for me and what was being birthed through me. Like, it had to come out, and it had to be very, for me, transparent with the collective. And it is the knowing that I am here to be a guide, but I am not a leader. And I have been working through this like for probably 3 years, but it was coming to a culmination on that morning. And what that looked like is explaining to people. And then the best way that I could figure out how to do it was how, when we were in that tighter matrix, Aisha, Faith, and we were having this conversation, and I said, okay, if I'm needing to understand the difference between a guide and a leader, I need to go look at the symbolism of the letters, because my brain is not able to comprehend this leap. So in that morning, as I'm like sitting there, expressing myself to people, I said, I understand when I'm doing my own work, I am a guide, and that is spelled with the letter G, which looks like a spiral, and is something that I identify with deeply as, like, if I had to pick a symbol for my soul, it would be a spiral. And that energy isn't touching the ground. It's not present here. It is in its own evolution. It is in its own silo. It is in its own experience. And the L asks me to pull that energy down and then even it out. And I don't know how to do that. I mean, even my partner is saying he wants me to be more present, more here. And it's something that I'm learning. You know, I explained to them, like, I'm here doing the work. Like, we are all here gathering together to hold space for each other to do our individual work. And as I'm like crying my eyes out, you know, moving through the energy, I'm feeling like as I'm moving it, it's like I can move again, I can breathe again. It's like, because I'm able to also in real time have reflections back to me, not just speaking at a camera. And it brought it to a place that I could really understand in my own experience that this time space reality isn't calling for more leaders. It's calling for us to be leading together. It's calling for community. It's calling for conscious reflections and like deep knowings that come through each vessel, not one person. It is meant to flow through all of us collectively. And that's when we reach a portal. So this dance really had me in it for years until I could finally reflect it out or give it out to the people reflecting to me their experience with the two and what that means. And one of the biggest takeaways for me, which I think I just did an episode about this not that long ago, is being an activator. And I know how to find those, I will call them trigger points or origin points in people that I'm an excavator, I'm a researcher, but of people, I want to find that originating point and start picking at it. I want to wake it up, you know, and that really bothers some, I'm sure. And in others, they're like, bring it on. I'm here for it, you know? And I have to like ride the bridge of both, like of all of the spectrums and knowing like, okay, she gets it. This one over here, I'm hurting and I don't want to hurt anyone. So it's like, how do I nurture that? How do I, you know, maybe deliver it in a different way? And at the same time, how do I be true to myself? Because at the core of this entire journey is I have to be centered. I cannot let people sway me off of my center too far without bouncing back. And I have to find and land on that center. So that's basically what I was working through. And then the next offering on the table after we went through that for hours, it felt like, I don't actually know how long. I was presenting the next offering, which was we have this in part of the gateway. We ask people, if you have an offering that you feel like sharing with the collective, we'll put it in the basket and basically whatever in the moment feels right, that's where we're going. So mine was picked, which was, I did a sound bowl session for them out at the pool while they were in the water. And I'm going to say this, the way I got to this offering was first, my best friend sent me something on Instagram where she saw, it was a video of this exact thing, but it was at nighttime, I believe. And someone was playing the sound bowls and everyone was in the water. And she said, "This is my dream at your house." So I was like, oh, okay. So that was like the first seed. And then last time we were in Joshua Tree, Richard said like, why don't you, since you're going to be seeing your friend Leah tomorrow, why don't you ask her if she'll teach you sound bowls? And I was like, okay, yeah. And so I did, and I asked her if she would, you know, mentor me, and she was like, of course. So then I bought my set of sound bowls. And here's the crazy thing. Even though we had every intention for Leia to be coming and, you know, even spending time here, and we were going to do a retreat together and, you know, moon circles, and because she's going through this dissolution of her land and her temple space, it's like we're ships passing in the night right now. So I had to teach myself. So what I did is I just every night that I was in here after I would be working, I just sit down and start playing them. And what I realized is I was playing for what my body needed. You know, like like attuning the frequency. Imagine like crystals are, I call them the gateway because they are the most stable that we can get, especially when we start our journey. But eventually you move to sound, and sound is another frequency that can hold you steady and help you go and like release things or go deeper into something. And I realized like, I'm just tuning my own body. Okay. So then I just basically started teaching myself. I didn't like learn other than I learned the notes of the bowls. So as I'm doing that, I'm kind of listening to music at the same time. And the reason is because in a gateway, we create a soundtrack for the gateway experience, and we ask everybody to contribute energy towards that so that we can all start feeling into each other before we even arrive. So kind of I had music in the background for that reason, and in came in this thing called Medicine Buddha. It's a chant set to music, and I knew, I'm supposed to do, my sound bowl session is going to be set to this chant, and I'm just tuning to that frequency. I don't know why, I'm like, okay, so I understood, and it was pretty long. It's like 35 minutes, and so that's what my offering was. That's how I got to it. And I'm saying this to you because I want you to understand it wasn't something I offered that I already do or, that I'm good at. Like a lot of the work I do is one-on-one, so it wouldn't be a group offering. And to do a group offering, I think at the first gateway it was, this was the invention or the creation of the playlist, is that I said, let's do an ecstatic dance together, and I'll lead that. And I asked them to help with creating the soundtrack. So that's how it started. But so for this one, again, with the sound, but it was a different kind of experience. So I go and start getting the bowls, bringing them down. And as I'm doing that, I'm starting to get downloads, because now this day is the equinox. And I knew the portal had opened the afternoon before, but I didn't yet, like, honestly, the magic hadn't really started popping yet. So I was like, okay, I know the portal's open, but is this maybe what we experienced last gateway? It was a one-off, like, we don't know. But as I'm like setting my bowls up, I start getting information, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I sit down. I know now the Medicine Buddha, which I'm going to pause so that I can read to you what the Medicine Buddha is. The Medicine Buddha mantra is meaning: may the many sentient beings who are suffering be freed of all pain, including disease, death, and karma. May this suffering never rise again. So as I'm sitting there, I'm like, they say, go back and read the mantra. And I do. And I'm like, oh, the portal that opened here was a cleaning of the, I'm not going to even call it family lineage, because it goes deeper than that. It's almost like finding the seed of a bloodline and helping to, like, just like I said, how I like to find people's anchors or trigger points and poke those. This portal opened, and it was allowing that seed of deep ancestral woundage to start bubbling up. That's how it looks. And I'm like, what? And that's why they're in water, because it's a representation of the womb space, and it's the easiest way to move energy. So I'm like sitting there by my bowls, like poised, ready to start. I'm like, guys, okay, I'm ready. This is what's actually happening. And I'm like, I didn't know until this very moment. And then everyone was like, wait, so-and-so is missing. This one's not here yet. And I said, guys, everybody that's here is who actually is meant to be here. Like, let them go. Let it go. They know that we're beginning. It is exactly for who is here. And I just said, are we ready? And they're saying, wait, there was one other part, which I'm going to share. I wasn't sure I was going to share this part, but I will. The second thing that came through is that the archetype that was supporting this opening, this portal, and also this release of energy was called the Blue Medicine Buddha. And the Medicine Buddha is believed to be based on a being who once lived on earth and purified himself through many embodiments. So what it felt like is the monad opening up this portal for us to allow us to move energy through our system. And I'm like, okay, guys, are we ready? And they're like, okay. And then I start the music and I look up and I remembered, that's right. I shared this mantra with one other person in the Pearl Portal. And I didn't even know why I felt called to give her this soundtrack, but I did. I had sent it to her maybe a week before. And as I look up and the music is starting, she starts bringing down codes into the water, and everyone in that spa got in the zone. They were like, it felt like they were in a trance in a way. I don't know. They were just deep in it. And she was dropping codes from the AETHER ether into the water as the mantra started. And then I start working the bowls, and and intuitively, I went to the lower chakras first to open up that space, but it was like, no. That part had already been opened through the work that we had been doing the days before. So then I was really focusing mainly on the heart, throat, third eye. Those were the 3 chakras that were like, and every time I would try to bring it up through the crown, and if I got too high, one person would get up and walk, like move around and not be able to stay, in it. So then I would go back down to the crown, and then she'd like settle back in. And then I would like kind of like inch my way back up to the crown. And then I could just feel like this is the dancing zone is throat, third eye, and the heart. And it was like this like movement of frequency and this chant that was like moving like greasing the wheels for this to happen and to work through each person. And I'm just like, okay. And then I start getting downloads about the lemniscate, which is the infinity symbol, and is on the top, and probably was the first thing that I added to my altar, because it's really the first knowing that I had about energy. And I'm as I'm playing the bowls, I realized like, this is also why I'm playing the bowls. Like I can do them in a lemniscate and move the energy like through 2 bowls at the same simultaneously. And I'm just like, okay, I'm there, I'm doing it. And it feels like I'm literally mixing the energy and really, but also paying attention to everyone in the pool so that I can know where they are and where I need to tune, to make sure no one feels friction, I guess. So I'm going. And then like the one that was like feeling restless and wasn't stabling there, I was like mainly focused on her, and then I watched to see how long she could hold it. And then they showed me, okay, it's complete. You can complete the whole 35 minutes or it's up to you. So that I just waited to see how long they could hold it, because how would I know? I'm just watching each person to make sure that each person can hold where they are. And then we concluded, and in walks the person that was here that didn't come. She walks in when it's complete, and she's wearing all blue. And I said, there's our blue Buddha. And then I have this little video, hopefully I can add it here, where everyone's like, blue Buddha! Yeah. So there was some really deep lineage releasing and healing in this gateway. And it was like, again, none of us knew until we were in it. And then that day opened up to, after that session, I got into the spa and we were still listening to the soundtrack, and in came this other mantra that I had been vibing with called Humdy Hum. And I turned to one of my sisters and I said, do you have codes for this song? She gets up, stands in front of me, starts bringing down some codes, and my whole system, it's like something went whoosh, and I couldn't breathe. I'm like slammed against the back of the spa, and I'm like, like it probably looked like a panic attack. I don't know. I did feel hands all over me. And I kind of got back into my body, and I felt like, okay, well, I don't know what just happened. And then it happened again, but this time something dropped into my body, and I felt like, and the feeling stayed in there for about, I'm going to say at least 2 hours, where it felt like there was this whole hole in my heart chakra, like a deep hole. And like, I would describe it like people who I think have a heart murmur. You can feel like it's hollow. If something's, like off rhythm, it feels like that. It literally feels like a portal into your heart. And I'm just like, oh my God, what did you just do to me? and I'm crying. And she turns around to the rest of the spa and she's like, and I have feeling for everyone else here too, if you want it. And everyone's like, oh, me. So the rest of that day, there was like deep healing in that water. And I was like, oh my God, if anyone saw us outside of being in this spa and in the land, meaning like my neighbors or a helicopter or anything, they would probably think we are nuts. But we spent hours in that spa while each one of us got healed. And actually not everyone did it. I think there were 2 that didn't feel it, didn't get in the water. And it was amazing to see each person receive what they are. And it's like an activated in the vessel after that deep release happened. So that rest of that day was just like magic upon like the entire time. And then we were at our last offering of the night, which was the face spray workshop. And I hit this like slammed against this wall that I knew I only had like an hour until I was going to be done. And we still were going to do ecstatic dancing. And I was like, I can't. So after we do the face spray, which is its own magical adventure and something that is offered at every gateway because it is such a beautiful, magical connection with the face. It's amazing. We go back into the temple. I lay down and I don't remember a thing after that. So they did closing ceremony and wrapping everything up without me because I passed out, like gone. And what I know now is that each of us after that attunement had to go into like a reset. And my reset started about an hour after that we finished in the spa. It was like, nope, you're not online anymore. And I was in the room with them. I didn't hear anything, nothing. And the other thing is Penny was my only animal that ended up being able to stay throughout the whole gateway. She could hold the energy of us. And she was just by my side the entire time. Even in ceremony, she was by my side. I heard that she passed out with me and we didn't move the rest of the night until the morning. So I missed a whole portion of the gateway, which was devastating, but I know I couldn't hold anything else. It was time for me to reset. Now, at the last gateway, everything started shutting down electronically. And so it was interesting. We did notice, we noticed it in the moment. And afterwards we were like, I think our frequency must have been too high. Like something frizzed out everything in Faith's house. Well, this time, on the equinox, the internet stopped working. Then of course the printers didn't work. And, thank God the spa stayed open until that day. Everything was fine with the spa. But I'm like, I tried to reset it. Because someone needed to reprint a boarding pass and it just was gone. Like there was nothing coming back. So after everyone left the following day, it turned out, yes, modem kaput. I needed to get a new modem. The spa and pool completely kaput. All of the system broken. Like we've had to have so many people out here to try to fix it. Also, the water heater completely broken. everything that had like some kind of frequency that wasn't allowed to be in that vibration basically broke. And when the guy was here from Cox replacing the modem, he's like, so what do you think happened? And I said, well, I could tell you, but it will be weird. He's like, that's all right. And I said, well, I had a retreat here last week, and I think our frequency was too high for the bandwidth of this modem. And he's like, interesting that you say that. And I was like, why? He goes, because I've never heard of that before. But recently I was at another guy's house, an older man who I think he had gotten a new hearing aid that carried a certain frequency. And that also did it to his modem. And he's like, that's why I asked you, like, what do you think it was? So I said, like, yeah, like I told him everything started breaking and also the modem. And he's like, okay, he's like, let me give you my personal number. Next time you have a retreat, I want to know what happens if it breaks it again, and I'll come and repair it again, but I want to be in the know on this one. I'm like, okay. So yes, everything crashed and had to be reborn. And then that day after everybody left, Richard said, do you want to go out to the desert? And I said, yeah, I think I need to. And so we went to Palm Springs and just camped in our van. And the gravity of being in the desert after being that high felt like whoosh, like back in the body, back grounded deep into this earth. The ley lines there are, how do I describe? Like in my land, I can go both frequencies, but mainly it's pretty high. For me, the desert drops me deep down back into the earth. And we spent like 2 days out there with the animals and just chilling. Like we went to some thrift stores, some antique shops, and this beautiful scarab from Egypt made its way into my field. And became one of my allies on that trip. Yes. This actually is placed on, I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll put a picture if you can't see, but there's hieroglyphs on the back of it. And they were used to put over people's hearts in burial as like a way to how do I say this? The decomposition of one thing being birthed into another. That's what the scarab does. It's like decaying so that new compost can happen and new growth. And to me, I knew, yeah, I had a reset. This is my reset. And I have a totem to honor that beautiful experience. So yeah. Then we came home, and right away, again, my cousin and my aunt asked to come for a visit. And I'm like, they came right after we got back from Palm Springs. And I knew, because after the last gateway, there was also healing that happened through my mom and her sister. I think, were the meeting ground. And we got to just, with the moment my cousin said it, I was like, of course, come. Yeah, come. And having them here just felt like there were 4 generations. So it was my mom's sister, my cousin, her daughter, my cousin's daughter, and her daughter's 2 daughters, which one was 6 and one was 7 weeks old. So there was just like, okay, it's a girls' trip and let's go there. So right away I knew they're coming. What happens after a gateway is the people that are closest to you and also that need your frequency the most will start gathering around you. You won't have to do anything. They'll just start floating in. So I knew, okay, let's go there. They're coming in. We did a day of shopping because one of the daughters is getting married. My cousin's daughters is getting married. And then the weather got really cold and it was rainy. The spa, at this point, the pool and spa don't work. So we can't go outside and enjoy anything outside. It's cold, it's rainy. We're inside and we're baking and we're cooking and we're making popcorn balls. And we start getting deep into the stories, we were talking about like, what is your best memory of great grandma, and what do you think was the absolute hardest thing of your childhood? Like we were talking questions like that. And both my mom and her sister were going there, like they were sharing and opening up. And my mom says to me, I know how to build a garden, and I know how to bake bread, and I know how to do all of that. I just choose not to. And I'm like, why? And she said, after Joyce is 10 years older than my mom. So after she left the farm, my mom was the only girl and a bunch of boys. So she was the one that was helping my grandma every day with all the chores, which is she had a huge garden. She had to feed all these kids. They had a wheat farm. And so my grandpa and the boys would be out in the field all day. And my mom was that one that was stuck in the kitchen. And she got to this place of despising it so much that she didn't cook for us. She would do like takeout or like box meals, or, she never, other than Christmas and Thanksgiving, she wouldn't cook. So I didn't grow up with that as a language of love, because that's not how it was nurtured. And, this is why I have a sweet tooth. She did nurture it through sweets. So not that she baked, but there was always some kind of sweets around. So I realized like, okay, that's interesting, because I'm being called to bake, and I'm being called to be more present by baking. So it's interesting that my mom has such an aversion to it. And what I realize is that I'm actually healing something that got broken there. My grandfather, who I have on my altar and has been on my altar from the very beginning, is he was a wheat farmer, and this was his trade. And Richard had me reading this book called let me think, I'm going to get it right. One moment. Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. And it goes deep into the grains and understanding why it's so important to mill, and what these different flours mean. And I realized, like, my grandfather has been on my altar from the very beginning. He's calling for me to heal a wound that doesn't need to be in our lineage, like communing with the land and building and creating with the land is part of why I'm here. And I just had that blip of my mom that got so traumatized that she shut it down, but we're being asked to rebirth it. And Richard's known this all along. I just didn't get it. I had no idea. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's why he's bringing bread in. This is why he's like leading me with a carrot, dangling carrot, to my next iteration, which is the L, to be here. How do I bring my energy here? How do I share my energy here in third dimension with people that wouldn't be looking for spiritual advice? Well, through my DNA, through my energy, through every part of me that puts my love into that dough is how. So I'm getting all this information as they're talking, and I realize if they hadn't come, I wouldn't have been able to connect the threads to understand why this was coming in, why Richard's asking me to be more present here versus here. And it's like light bulb, get it, got it. Okay. So this is the birth of a company that started when we first moved to this land. The day we moved in, Richard said, "I've named the land." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, it's Almost Heaven, California. And I was like, okay. And for our wedding, I got us our doormat says Almost Heaven, California on it. And we even got napkins for the wedding, now that I think of it. But in that, like, there was this birthing of honing in and naming this land and understanding it was a different octave. It was a different experience. It was a different dimension. And Richard, not consciously understanding it, was already naming it, So, with that, it's been years, and I don't know, I don't know if I've ever talked about that. I don't know if I've ever told you guys the name of this land, but when we were driving back from Palm Springs, we had been out in Joshua Tree. It would have been back in December early December. We were driving back from Palm Springs, and we were talking about like, okay, we need to create a business. If we're going to have retreats here, we need to have it official. And, AFG is its own entity, but we, as a protecting ourselves, we also need to create a structure. So we were talking to our accountant on our drive back from Palm Springs, and first he said, okay, you need to give me a name, but pretty much every name is taken. So, he's like, so for example, mine is the initials of my kids and something. And I'm like, okay. So Richard's like, ask him because he's driving. He says, ask if Almost Heaven is taken. So I text him. He's like, yeah, I checked. It's taken. So then Richard said, okay, then let's try Almost Heaven, California. And he's like, you're not going to believe this, but it actually is available. So that's the name of our business, and bread business is now called Almost Heaven California Bakery. And I mean, it's like, it makes perfect sense. The other things that have started to drop for me is I realized that not only am I being asked to put my energy towards this language of love and putting it out into my community and out into the ether for others to have, and neighbors, and it's me finding me again, but me here in third dimension, in this reality, like bridging the two, because here I can talk and like, but how am I bringing things down here? I have with the work that I do through this channel, I have a really hard time with it being a business. As you guys know, I usually don't talk about my work I do on the side because I want to give. Like, I feel like I would do this for free. I love this work. Like, this is my soul work. But Richard's saying, yes, but you need to be here and understand frequency of money too. And I'm like, okay, but I really have a hard time. Like, so we've been this back and forth of like, I'm trying to create these courses, which I have a new website. Sorry, I'm going down all these threads, but as they come in, I'm just saying them. I have a new website, and under courses, you can see the magic that's being created there. Right now, I think there may be like 8 or 10 classes on there. But the way I look at it is I created this space that is this blank journal, and it's saying, feel me when you're ready. Feel me when you have the energy to move here. The way that it was shown to me is it's a spiral, and it's in different octaves. So octave 1 is the one that I started creating, and the one that I'm putting energy towards now. And you can purchase the classes. They're $11.11 each, so not expensive. Individually, or you can purchase each octave spiral. So what that looks like for me is that I get to grow in this container as I grow. I don't know, I don't know. I'm still like to do octave 1 is like going backward in time for me. So I'm like remembering and bringing those lessons forward. But octave 2 will be like the next iteration, and octave 3, and I have room to grow. So it's called the Pearl Mysteries. The website itself is like, I'm just like in awe of it. It's so beautiful. I was able to create each course as an actual pearl, and it just lights me up. Whenever I look at it, I'm just like, it's like, how when you buy a journal, you want it to have like a certain look and a picture or a color or a mood that draws you towards it. That's how I feel about the Mystery School portal. And it's like this yumminess that I keep getting to dip back into, and when the energy moves, focus on. So ultimately, the goal is that when I have all of octave 1 complete, people will have the option of buying the full spiral, and then that will create a community, and then we'll go and do I don't know if it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly energy group sessions. We'll work through the energies that are coming up for each person. So it feels like this whole collaborative world. And that's where I was giving everything of myself, every ounce of my time. But Richard's like, hello, let me wave the white flag here. You need to be here too. So the bread is like, I get to be here. And it's like the first aligned way that I get to understand how to be here. Already I was like, well, I'm not going to just be in a kitchen by myself. I'm going to have to bring people along the journey. So I created a new YouTube channel called Almost Heaven California Bakery. And I don't know. He's like, well, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know yet. But that's the point. Like, I'm not going to talk about, maybe once in a while it will be like something about bread and how to make a sourdough starter. But really, it's going to be codes. Like, I can start working with people in a field that are not spiritual. And that's what I'm excited about. So I get to start dropping codes everywhere now. And I have different outlets to move the energy. And I would not have birthed this. I'm going to bring it back to the start. If it wasn't for them breaking open my cocoon and reshuffling my energy into a greater part of the house, and then letting my fractals come and explore that part of me. And also my whole experience, like my whole life was on display and nothing was off limits for everyone that came. So that meant like people in my bed, like lounging. I think my bed was called the social bed or the lounging bed. So like I went through this like such a burst open that introversion is gone. It's like, bring it in. I feel better when I'm letting it in. And so I have had a rebirth, a new experience. And I'm also in this space of like, I don't know where this is going. I know that this weekend we have our first farmers market. I do know that. And that means I will be baking all day or doing all the doughs Friday. And we're getting up early Saturday morning and baking. But I don't know. I don't know anything else. And I don't need to. Like, that's the magic of this. It feels like I get to step into the unknown, but from a perspective that is deeply centered in my knowing, and see what I can mix up in the energy over there. And I'm like, I'm here for it. So, one more thing. Because of this, and because Richard could see that I was getting it, he was like, hey, do you want to go to San Francisco and take 2 weeks of baking classes? And I was like, sure. So in May, I'm going to San Francisco for 2 weeks to learn like how dough works and how French baguettes are and the different temperatures. I mean, I'm learning it all on my own right now, but I get to go and learn from like master teachers. And then Richard's going to come up the second week and we're going to take a week-long course on sourdough, just sourdough. So right now our offerings are sourdough and French bread because he already took the French bread course. So it's like this interweaving of our energies in this reality. And I am going to bring up a saying that I was raised with. I was raised Catholic, and it rings. It's like it's making a loop back into this moment, which is, give us this day our daily bread. I feel like my mission changed from being so cosmic and so like teaching from that space to, can I be the bread? Am I the daily bread? And how do I bring that here? You know, how do I find my hollow bone and deliver it through the frequencies to this time space? And at this point, like, I am going to use my throat, but I am going to use my hands, and I'm going to use my energy, and I'm going to use my DNA. I am going to work both angles. And that feels like my daily bread right now. And I hope that you guys look for that YouTube channel. I don't think it's going to be a podcast because it's going to be a visual thing. So on YouTube, it's going to be called Almost Heaven California Bakery. The site is already set up. There's no videos there yet, but there is a page. And I don't know, like, I'm like in the void of it. Like, let's go. I'm ready. And I also want to say, I'm very clear that he is helping me do this. And I think I might have talked about him being the only divine masculine that I had reflected to me in my childhood. And to have him feels like patting my back, pushing, or encouraging me forward down this new path, couldn't be more aligned. So, yeah, I love you guys. If you're here, I love you even more for being on this journey with me. I can't wait to see you in a gateway and experience magic with you. So until then.